Hi, I'm Zen and welcome to this video on how to make Gantt charts in Excel and not using the way that you've been shown by every other YouTuber. In this version, we are not going to be using a chart system. We're not going to be inverting things. We're going to have a much nicer, much cleaner system. So without further ado, let's get into it. Although we all have many reasons of why we want to make Gantt charts, the reason why I'm doing this video is for this exam unit in the BTEC, the Planning and Management of Computing Projects, Unit 3, which is a 3-hour exam, yet in that 3-hour exam you've got approximately 1 hour to make your Gantt chart, resource list and cost plan. And therefore setting up your Gantt chart quickly and easily and effectively is really, really important. Now obviously the Gantt chart I'm going to be making is going to be related to this, but all of the maths and the other things I do is totally relatable to your own personal projects. So even if you're not doing this BTEC but still need to do Gantt charts, this video will definitely do it for you, and trust me, it's much better than the standard version. The first thing we're going to do is to create the table that the Gantt chart's going to be based on. And of course, one of the things we should be doing before we do that is to format the actual row so that the columns are more easily read. I'm going to use row 10 here just because it's there. So we're going to right click on it. We are going to go into format cells. I'll bring this over so we can see it. We go to alignment and we're just going to go to wrap text. There are other ways of doing this, such as in the home, there should be a condition up here. There we go, wrap text, so we can turn it on and off. And I also like to center both vertically and horizontally. So here are our columns. We have the name of the job. Obviously we're probably going to want to expand this column a bit so that we can put in longer job names. And then we have functional points. If you're not sure what functional points are, this is part of project management, but essentially it's sort of like a unit of work that needs to be done. There are different types of functional points like general and complex, and on top of that, it depends if you've got a junior or experienced person may be able to do each functional point at a different speed. So here we've got an area where we can say how many hours it's going to take per point for the type of people that are going to be doing this particular task. Then we have the total number of hours, number of people who are going to do it. We can add those names in so we can track them, how many hours it is per person, the number of days it's going to take for that task in total, the start day, so this is just a numerical counter from 1 to whenever, and then we can actually have the actual date, and we can have the end day and the end date. Obviously you don't need to have all of these columns, and there may be some additional columns that you actually want. That's totally fine. A common one is that some people like to use the start and end days, and other people prefer the start and end date and not use the others. It's entirely up to you which one you choose. So for me, if I'm going to do a Gantt chart, I want this to be as automated as possible. So that's what we're going to do with these columns. We're going to start automating them. And so the first one we can do is work out total hours. So this is quite simple. We're just going to go into the cell here. We're going to press equals, and then we're going to tell it to do the calculation for us. So we want to multiply the number of functional points. So in this case, this is my C11. And then we're going to use the asterisk to represent the multiplication. And then we're going to click into the column of the hours per point. And then we're just going to press enter. And we get the value 0 because obviously these are both empty fields at the moment. And what I'm going to do now is just to right click and copy. I'm going to paste it down. Oh, don't want to go too far. Let's do it about to 115. This will be far, far more than what we need. And what we really want to do is to paste the formula. You can actually just do paste and it'll work fine, but pasting the formula is the correct one. So the next one that we can automate is the hours per person. And if you haven't worked that one out, it's going to be the total hours here divided by the number of people. So again, we click into the cell and we do equals, and we can click on the total hours, do the / and have the number of people. Now we will get a div divide by 0 error because obviously there's nothing here. So it defaults to the value 0, as we see there. But as we fill in this table, these values will be sorted out. And again, we're going to right click and copy, and we're going to paste it all the way down. I think it's about 115. Yeah, there it is. And paste the formula, which is the third option. Now we have the number of days, and number of days is quite easy to calculate if you know how many hours you're going to have your people working. According to the exam, in this particular one, it is 7.5 hours. So what we're going to do here is, again, we're going to start here. We're going to press the equal sign. And the first thing we're going to do is to use the round up function. Okay, technically it should be in uppercase, but it will do it for you. And then it's going to be open bracket. And I'm going to choose the column before because it's the hours per person. And then / to divide by 7.5, which is the number of hours per day. And then we're going to do a comma and put in the number 0 because we want to round it up to 0 decimal points. And then we put in the closing bracket and then we press enter. And again, you see we get a div by 0 error, and that is absolutely fine. So we're going to right click, we're going to copy, and then we're just going to paste it down. And again, paste the formula. So the start date here is actually, well, we just use the number 1. This is going to be the first day. And then the start date, well, I quite like to format my date, so I'm just going to highlight the column, right click, and format cells. I'm going to go to number, we're going to go to date, and I'm going to choose this fifth option, I think it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. The shorthand date there, so I'm going to do OK there. And I'm also going to do the same one for the end date. So again, we're going to go into format cells, date, fifth option, and select OK. So according to this particular assignment, the first date is on the 1st of the 2nd, 21. Now the end day we can calculate because it's going to be the start day plus the number of days minus 1. Don't forget the -1, it's very important. So we can do equals, and then we're going to do start day, and then we're going to put in a plus, and we're going to have the number of days, and then finally we're going to put in a -1, and then we press enter. And again, we get a div by 0, even though we're not divided by 0, but because this mass has got a divide by 0 error, that's what causes it there. So the end date is very similar to working out the end day, except for because it's a date, we want to use one of the built-in functions called WORKDAY. Now the WORKDAY function is quite handy because what it does is that it cancels out the weekends. Now if you happen to be somebody that does work the weekends and maybe you don't work some days during the week, there are ways of doing this and telling it which days you work and which days you don't. If you'd like me to do a video on that, please put a comment down below and I will do a quick video on that for you. However, for this, as you can see, we do equals workday, open bracket, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the start date. Okay, I'm then going to do a comma. I'm going to choose the number of days, and again I'm going to do the -1. And I'm going to close that and press enter. So this looks like it's almost complete. A couple of things we haven't done yet is to copy these calculated ones down. So let us just do that now. So like we did before, it's copy, scroll it down until we match up the others, right click, paste formula. Let's do the same on the end date, copy, click, drag. Oops, I'm going to miss out one there. Paste it there. Just add that one as well. Now there are some people who are going to say, well, there's a quicker way to doing this just with the clicks and dragging. However, this just makes sure that you don't make a mistake. Now we've got this, let's see if this works for us. So let's just put in some random values, 12 functional points and 3 hours per point. We press enter. We can see we've got 36 hours. Now, if we put in number of people, and let's just say we've got 2 people doing it, and we press enter, we can suddenly see these are all working for us. So it's 18 hours, which is 3 days. Now, the way we've done this calculation, I should have said, it's always going to round it up. So even if it's only, a couple of hours into one day, it will still be calculated as the whole day. So 18 hours per person, as we know, it's 7.5 hour day, so it's really 2.5 days. So we're calculating it 3, start on day 1 and we finish on day 3. So here you can see why we needed this -1 in the calculation, because if we didn't have that, we'd start on day 1, we'd finish on day 4, but we actually only worked for the first 3 days. So this keeps our days working nicely. And as you can see, the start and end date has come out nicely as well. Now, you may be wondering, why haven't we done anything with the start day and start date? Why aren't these copied and pasted down like the others? And the reason for that is that these values depend on the previous row. So we couldn't actually do this one until we got this value here, because we want to start the second job the day after the first job has been finished. So now we can do equals, we can click into the cell to reference it, and then we can just do +1, and there we have it. And likewise, we do the same on the start date. So we can do equals, we're going to do, and this is important, we have to use that workday function. Okay, so it's going to be workday, and then we're going to reference that cell, comma, and 1 for 1 day later, and there we have it. So we can see this working now, that if we actually add, let's just reduce the number of people so there's only one person doing it. We now see it's 5 days, so we start on Monday, finish on a Friday, which is the 5th, but then we see we start the second job will be on the 8th, and that is because we've cut out the Saturday and Sunday. Now we've got these columns sorted, we can do like we've done before, which is to copy it and take it all the way down and to paste it. And again, let's just do the formula, and likewise same for this one. Copy and I paste all the way down. Right click and paste. So now we can start seeing that we can work out all of the data that we're going to need for our Gantt chart. So what we need to do now is to start looking at formatting the actual Gantt chart area. And again, I always like to move just slightly away. So I'm going to start here in this cell, which in my case is 09, and I'm just going to put in the number 1 here, because this is going to represent the work day. Okay, and now on this one here, I can do an equals, I can select the previous cell and do +1 just to make it the next day. So this is going to be our day counter, which represents the J and L columns. So now I've done that, again I can do a copy, and I'm just going to go over not too far, BZ will do me here, right click, and again copy formula. You can see we go up to 64 days there. I know in this particular exam it only goes up to 45 days, so you know you could cut that off a bit earlier. Now rather than just having the day number, we can also do it with the date. And again, this might need a little bit of formatting. So I'm going to highlight the row 8, right click and format cells. Again, we're going to go to date. I prefer this second version here. But now on the alignment, I'm going to take the alignment all the way up to the top. Let's see, I want to horizontally align the text as well. So I'm going to say OK there. And again, for this first cell, I'm going to put the date in myself. So let's go for 1/2/21. So even though I've done it in shorthand, that now converts to the 1st of February 21. Now I can go to cell next to it, and then I want to put in workday first, then open brackets. Now I'm going to reference the previous cell, comma and a 1. Close the brackets, press enter. So now we've got the next date. And again, we can now copy this and we can slide it across all the way up to our 64. Right click, and once again we are going to copy the formula. So now we can see we've got the dates along the top along with the numbers here as well. It is this next step which is both the very important clever bit and the bit where some people will make a lot of mistakes. So I do recommend, obviously, that you do pay some attention here. So the first bit here is to work out what cell I need to click in. And for me, it is this cell. Notice I'm in row 11 and I'm in column O. So I'm in the same column as the dates here and with the data here. Then I go up to the top and I select conditional formatting. I'm going to select new rule. and then use formula to determine which cells to format. And then this is where we're going to go and work in. So the first thing we're going to do is press the equal sign, and then we're going to use the keyword and, because we're going to be doing 2 evaluations for this cell. So I'm going to open up the brackets, and now what I'm going to do is to click onto the day cell, which in this case is 09. Now what you'll notice here is that in the actual formula it's got $O and $9. Now when we've done the calculations before and we've done a copy and pasting, everything has been relative. So it's always been the a reference to the cell and the number positions from the cell across. When we use the dollar sign, we're saying no, we don't want this value to change. So even if we copy and paste it, it will stay the same. And so if we leave this as it is, even if we copy and paste this formula across to the other cells, it will always reference 09. Now that's half of what we want to do. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to be doing? In this particular case, I always want to be referencing line or row 9. So it doesn't matter if it's number 1 or any of these numbers, but it's always going to be row 9 that I'm interested in. The column can change in my referencing. So that means I'm going to click up here and press the backspace to get rid of the dollar in front of O. So the column becomes relative, but the row becomes fixed. And this is very important to get your head around. Do be careful with using the arrow buttons on your keyboards to navigate around the format. And this is because depending on what version of Excel you may have, it may start moving the actual cell here around your screen and start changing these values in here. Anyway, so back to this. So we've got the $9. So the column O is going to be relative, but the row 9 is going to be static. And what we want to do is to say if this is greater or equals to, and we want to reference the start day, which is this one here. Now again, we ask ourselves, what parts do we want to change and what parts do we want to keep the same? In this case, the column J is important, but the row can change. So in here, we want to keep it as a $J, but get rid of the dollar in front of the line 11. And that is our first condition. We're basically saying format this cell into whatever it's going to be if this number is greater than or equals to this number here. So then we're going to do a comma, and once again we're going to reference the same cell, and we're going to get rid of the dollar in front of the O, so that way again the column is relative but the row is fixed. And this time we want it to be less than or equals to the end of the day, which is this one here. And again, we want the column to be fixed but the row to be fluid. So we'll get rid of the dollar sign in front of the 11, and then we just close the bracket. So that is our if statement, okay? And it's a basically what we're saying is this number greater or equals to this number? At the same time, is it less than or equal to this number? And then if it is, we're going to format, we're going to go to fill, and I'm just going to choose this blue. You can obviously choose any color that you want, and we say OK, and we do OK, and you can see it's gone blue. So now what we want to do is apply that to all of the cells. So we just need to get our reference for the rest of the cells. So we go across, and we can see it's a BZ there, and then we know we go down to something like 150, but let's just double check it. So BZ 115. So now to apply it to all of them, all we do is go back into conditional formatting. We go to manage rules. We can now applies to. Now here's my little hint. I always use the comma first then delete it, then do the colon. The reason for that, if you go straight to colon first, it'll actually add in extra values that you don't want to. And then we put in the cell reference that we talked about earlier, which is BZ115. And normally when you do this, it will actually put the dollar signs into it as well. And that's fine. So we just go dollar sign. Apply. Press OK. And now if I zoom out a bit, we can see that has worked perfectly. He hasn't done this one yet, but let's just put in some values here. So again, 3, 15, 2 people. Yep, and you can see the next one works straight away. And we can continue on as much as we like. So again, let's go 14, let's go 6, let's say it is 4 people, and we can see our Gantt charts being built. Now, you may say, but what happens if we need to have multiple people doing different jobs at the same time? Well, that's fine. All you need to do is, and this is my recommendation, make sure you give yourself more than enough row spaces. So let's start going down here. And all you have to do is literally reseed it. So let's go for 12 functional points. Let's go for 6 hours per functional point. 72. Let's say we're going to assign it to 3 people. Okay, you can see it's all working across. And then all we do, reset the start day. Okay, and then the start date. Okay, and look at that, it's now working. And you can see that if I just carry on with that, there we go. So once you've finished with your Gantt chart, you can actually just highlight the rows that you've got left. You can use the shift button to select multiple rows, and you can just right click and go to clear cells or clear content, and now you have a perfect Gantt chart. I wouldn't always recommend doing that, to be honest. I don't think I think just having them like that isn't a big deal. But if you feel like you need to for your presentation, I'd always recommend that you save it first or save a copy and then delete it out from your copy, so that if you suddenly need to come back and change it because you've made an error, you're able to do so without having to mess about with all of the extra bits. But there we go, that is your Gantt chart. And what's lovely about this is that if you make a mistake, so let's just say you go, oh no, this isn't 3 hours per point, it is, I don't know, 4 hours per point. When you do that, all of the ones which are directly related or following on will change. Okay, the only times where you're going to have to manually go through and change things is if you've got, say, 2 sets of people working a job, and then you start a third one that requires both of them, so it's a part of the broken chain. You'll then have to reset that date manually. But apart from that, this Gantt chart now works perfectly for you. It will do all of the calculations, all of the dates, and of course, there's some other bits formatting you can do, such as just giving these all center align. There we go. Center both vertically. There we go. Just make them look a bit nicer. So the only real thing is if you want to change the colors, and you can do this, it's just a little bit pernickety, and unless you really need to, I wouldn't really bother. However, the way you would do this is to go into conditional formatting. We go to our manage rules. The first thing we're going to do is to duplicate the rule. Okay, and then I would go into and edit this particular rule and change the format color to whichever one we want. Let's go to yellow and OK that and OK that. So now we've got the 2 rules. Now all we do is change the ranges. So we keep the first one, but we're going to change it so it finishes at row 26. So we're going to change that one there from 115 to 26. And then we're going to start this one at row 27 instead. Do apply, and there you go, we can see it's gone yellow. So it's possible to do, and it doesn't take that long to do so. However, if you're doing this in that exam, this is what you do when you have nothing left to do. Do not waste your time trying to do this whilst you're starting off. The point is that you want to get this done as fast as possible. I've taken quite a bit of time to do this, My whole recording's about 35 minutes before I started editing. In reality, you need to try and get this down to about 5 minutes before you start entering your data. Okay, that's the trick. About 5 minutes before you start entering your data. You do it in that time or less, then you are definitely set up. And for those of you who want to do this as part of your career, as doing this part of your job, then you can set this up as a template, save it, and always come back to it. No doubt you can actually do conditional rules with these as well, so that if it is a diff by 0 error, it hides the data for you. And again, if you want me to do a video on something like that, please put it in the comments below, and when I've got some time, I shall add that in. But that is all I've got time for today. I really hope this has been useful. If you think I deserve a like and a follow, please go ahead and do that. It'll really help this channel. And I'll see you guys next time. This is Zen, signing off.